I think we have a good number of attendees who've joined us here for our webinar, which is going to be on entrepreneurship in the Indigenous Native American community, from which we have several guests joining us from Montana, New Mexico, and here in California. Our webinar is hosted by the Dejoux Institute of Entrepreneurial Leadership with Dr. Raul Dejoux, who started the Institute in person at John F. Kennedy University several years ago and has recently moved that course online. Our webinar will include our excellent panelists who come from all different backgrounds. We'll speak to you about the powers of entrepreneurship and hopefully give some tips that you'll find insightful, helpful for your journey. We will go through questioning each panelist pretty much individually and then open up for more of a group conversation. And you will have a chance for questions and some responses from the panelists towards the end of our webinar. And now I'd like to introduce the gentleman who started the Institute, Dr. Raul Dejoux, who is a native of Cuba. He emigrated here from Cuba at the young age of 13 without his parents, and then made it over to New Mexico from Miami. And he studied at New Mexico Tech in Socorro, where he gained his undergraduate degree and ultimately his PhD after a short stint in New York at Columbia. Raul Dejoux has been at the C-level of various companies, including Waste Management, Isadra, Energy Solutions, Headwaters, those are not in order, but various enterprises, and is now a partner at Bright Star Capital Partners, which is based in New York. It's a private equity firm. Raul takes part in a lot of philanthropic work and just wants to help people as much as possible. And I'm very proud and honored to be his assistant. He is also the author of 7 books and over 200 peer-reviewed articles, and has won several awards for his philanthropic work. So I'd now like to introduce Dr. Raul Dejoux.
Thanks, Sage. I'm very proud to have this team here with you. You know, I came here from Cuba and I was very lucky. I was short time in Miami and I love Miami, but there was a very small number of Cubans that wound up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're in good company. Jeff Bezos' dad, he's Cuban. He was one of the few that wound up in Albuquerque. So I had a great appreciation and a lot of friends in the Navajo community and in other communities, because I was at the bottom of the poverty level. And I learned to eat sardines, and I learned because I was it. And it was through the effort of a lot of people in New Mexico that I managed to be able to complete my school, get my PhD, and you know, have a lot of fun. And I still enjoy going back to New Mexico and California and the rest of the country. So what we're going to do here today is we have some representatives of the indigenous communities in Montana, in New Mexico, and other parts of the state. And we're actually videotaping this webinar because we're going to use it in some of the meetings of the indigenous communities to encourage entrepreneurship, encourage getting people to start their own business. And I'm going to be talking to each of the panelists and asking some questions. But I want you guys and gals to know that entrepreneurship can be done by everyone. And we're going to be showing you a class here that is available, but it's not a class where some professor is lecturing. It's a class where we have a dialogue with a number of people. We have people like Elon Musk on the class. And through the efforts of an organization called Kuriki, organized by Scott McNeely and others, those classes are basically a dialogue, but it's a dialogue that includes a lot of information from a lot of people that have been successful at starting their businesses. So you'll be able to grasp that. For example, one of the modules that teaches you how to basically raise money is done by Elon Musk. Well, I think Elon has raised a lot of money. So with that, I'm going to begin by introducing each of the panelists one at a time. And I'm going to start with Jill Osher. I've known Jill since we started the program at John F. Kennedy University. And since I was an investor in a wine business that she started. And I'm very proud that she has a business that basically supports the fact that women are great leaders for wine businesses and other businesses. Jill has been my colleague. Jill is my friend, and you know, she's family to me. And she's going to tell you a little bit about what she's doing and how, as an entrepreneur, her voyage has been. So, Jill, you know, you've chosen to make women's equality a central focus of Tenerol Cellars, your wine business, but not just in having a woman-owned and woman-operated winery, but also by advocating and supporting racial equality, supporting equality of gender, equality of everybody. And you have a very important thing that you do. You make a great wine. And we
have to start with a great wine. Yes.
had a number of times when we've enjoyed and indulged in your wines. So I want to ask you, your supporters, the wine club members of Tenerol, are they part of your Swarm Wine Club? And how do you use wine to effect change? Because you're one of a few women-owned wineries, although there's more now.
Yeah, I mean, so thank you, Raul. Thanks for having me. And you know, I've learned so much from you over the years. When you asked me to join on your board for the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership, and just the journey of being around other entrepreneurs, because you know, there's entrepreneurs versus wantrepreneurs, and the big difference is the discipline and that passion and the purpose that people bring towards starting their businesses. And while I always knew I wanted to be in the wine business because I love how wine connects people, but I realized, you know, in 2020, when you know this world was going through so much, and there was so much disconnection, and you know, lots of things happening in this country, I knew that I was put on this earth to use my voice. And in this other winery group, I wasn't really in a position to do that. And so as I took an introspective look at myself to say, what am I doing as a leader in the wine industry to be part of the solutions that I want to see in the world? I also looked at my own industry to find out that there was only 10% female winemakers and 0.1% Black winemakers, men and women. And that while female sommeliers are still making 70 cents on the dollar to their male counterparts. And yes, there are women that, you know, own tasting rooms and women that work in tasting rooms. There are very few women in leadership positions and even fewer women of color. And yet 67% of all wine is purchased by women, and the industry doesn't reflect its largest customer. So given I started, you know, I love wine for how it connects people, I thought, why not harness the power of business for good? And why not use wine as a conduit for change? Because every time I've opened up a bottle of wine, I've opened up the necessary conversations. So I wanted to be very intentional about disrupting the industry so that it would reflect its largest customer, and really focus on developing a plan where I will be the minority in my business in 5 years. So I think it's that intentional planning on how we do things disruptive, because otherwise we're never really going to make the change. And for me, it's not enough for women to just get C-suite positions or seats on boards if we can't truly show up in our authentic self. And so I'm trying to find a beautifully diverse team. 100% of my vendors and suppliers are women-owned businesses. That to me is the disruption. If it's only 50-50, or if it's more than it used to be, we're not really making the change that we want to see. And I believe that diversity brings, you know, more creativity, more productivity, more profitability. We've seen a lot of statistics around that. Also new ways and perspectives of thinking and doing things. So my Swarm Club is just a group of dragonflies, because the dragonfly is our logo and represents transformation. And the swarm is a way to not just join a wine club, but to really join a movement where we are trying to close that gender gap and pay equity gap, and do it one bottle of wine at a time.
And having fun at it, which is
And having fun at it, yes.
part of it. And I'm known for not following a script, but one of the things that you did that I was very proud of is you created a wine label to honor women that have made it in the world. And your first choice was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I believe you're sold out of that wine.
Yes, we are sold out of that, but every quarter we do different themes around women's empowerment. So that way, when you get the bottles of wine delivered to your house, that you get educated, you get conversation starters and tangible actions that you can take to make a change. And that's where we want you to open the bottle and open up the conversation, because for us, it's that cumulative effect of all of us taking small actions every day that create what we call the dragonfly effect. And that's that transformational change that we want to see. And yes, it has to start with great wine. So, we have award-winning, sustainably farmed and produced wine. So no pesticides, no chemicals, no concentrate or sugar. We give back 10% of all profits to charities that empower women and help to close the gender gap. And we are 100% women owned and run. And so I felt like it was my time to just lead by, very intentionally how we do things so that we can be the change that we want to see.
You do have some male investors.
Yes, so I have a couple of male investors, and no, and Raul, it's a great point, because while we are doing things very disruptively, and obviously our core market is women who believe in what we do and want to fight for gender equality, there's no question there's amazing men that support that same mission, like everyone on this call here. And people wouldn't be on this panel if they didn't believe, in lifting up those that are, disenfranchised or don't have the equitable opportunities that others do. And I see myself as someone that has had a lot of opportunity, and I want to make sure that I, in turn, pay that forward and very intentionally create a company whereby, again, I will be the minority in my business in 5 years. I think that we have to make this kind of disruptive change, and who better to do that than entrepreneurs?
And I have watched you through your career on a number of companies, and you're a disruptor. You're definitely a disruptor. What comes after RBG?
Well, we did a women's health release because there's just such inequities when it comes to healthcare, as well as funding for health research. We did a Peace, Love, and Joy at the end of the year where we benefited the World Central Kitchen, who's doing amazing work right now for everything happening over in Ukraine. We are currently in our 208 Disrupt Now collection, because there's the Global Economic Forum study says that if we don't do things disruptively different, it will still take 208 years for women to achieve full equality in the United States. And that's not globally, that's in the United States. So we're trying to do something about that. And then we're really excited that our next release in late May will be around the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And we're partnering with the Billie Jean King Leadership Initiative, and she will be featured on our bottle, and we'll be celebrating the amazing work that champions like Billie Jean King have done to get us here. And then what do we need to do for the next 50 years to close the pay gap, and a lot of the work that still has to be done around equality and equity.
And Sage, thanks to you and some of the connections that we did.
Absolutely.
Need to sign up. So
yep, takes a village, right?
Takes a village. Okay. I'm going to move from Jill for a second to the other extreme. Larry Udell. I've known Larry for ages. I mean, the Middle Ages, the early ages. But Larry is a dynamo. Larry lives in Silicon Valley. He created the California Invention Center. And this is in 1995. This is a lot of years ago and over a quarter century. And one of his pet peeves is to teach entrepreneurs in New Mexico. Now, I've met Larry many times in New Mexico, more times probably than in California. And at age 92, it humbles me that Larry is still teaching, still has the zest, and does it wonderfully. So, in fact, I believe I first met you in New Mexico, even though you live down the street. So, Larry, could you tell me, how do you see the private and the academic sectors being able to do better in the area of entrepreneurship, especially for the Native Americans? You're muted. You're muted. There.
Actually, we met at JFK
Oh, there you go.
originally.
Better than mine.
No, I fell in love with New Mexico in 1947 when my father was working on a special project for the government at the White Sands in Alamogordo. Spent 3 months, my mother and I, in a motel in Alamogordo. I fell in love with the desert. I got acquainted with several Indians, natives, and started prospecting the desert. And one of my great loves is the desert and all of the life that exists out there. My relationship with New Mexico Tech started in 2015 with lectures, and then into the Inventors and Entrepreneurs Workshop, which is an annual event, which has been very successful in stimulating entrepreneurship among not only new businesses, but people with ideas that can create businesses that create employment. I believe that the Native Americans throughout the United States are not being, what shall I say, considered and vitally important in our nation, and should be considered to be a part of entrepreneurship in every way possible. I think we need to do a lot of hand holding, and also at the same time start with normal, regular businesses, not going into high tech necessarily, but look at what types of technologies, what types of businesses are they interested in? I mean, America is the land of opportunity, and we have proven that, and we have proven over the centuries how productive we can be and how creative we are. The rest of the world has copied us for generations. And I believe that with the proper assistance and guidance, the tribes within New Mexico can proliferate into all types of businesses, not only what they want to do individually, but collectively. So this is one of my efforts with New Mexico Tech, and also with others in New Mexico that I work with, the SBA and SCORE and other organizations.
Well, let me move for a second to a couple of folks here from New Mexico, Dr. Colleen Bowman and Jason Arvizo. Colleen and I met at an event that actually you were doing, Larry, in New Mexico, and where we signed an agreement to basically provide support to the Navajo Nation to create businesses. And in fact, it's my understanding that you are having an event in about a month. And Colleen is the provost of Navajo Technical University, and Jason is the vice president in charge of administration and other things, other operations at Navajo Tech. And this to me is a very, very important element, Pauline, because the Navajos, we need to help the Navajo Nation create more jobs. That's the real challenge. And the Navajo Nation encompasses 3 states, if I'm not mistaken: Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. Did I get them right?
Yes, you did.
So what can we do to help Navajo entrepreneurs?
Thank you, Dr. Dejoux, for allowing us to be at the table with our voices. As the provost for the university, I represent the academic side of what our students are able to learn in order to go out and seek employment. And what Mr. Udell talked about, and having that hand holding, somebody showing us how it can be done, is so critical and important for our students, for them to be able to see that this is the path you can navigate. These are the tools that you can use. You need to learn these first in order to be successful, because you're going to be making mistakes if you just trial and error. And as an educator, that really isn't how it needs to happen. If we have the tools shown to us, we can take those, utilize those skills, all that knowledge, in order to create the type of world, the type of jobs that we want to benefit our nation. And I think part of what is lacking is that people are not understanding the layers of oversight that we must experience as Native Americans who live on federally designated lands. We have everybody regulating our lives, from the state, from the feds, from the counties, from our own tribe. And every layer of that bureaucracy is discouraging to entrepreneurs. I'm talking to students here on our campus who say, I learned a new skill. I want to start a company. Can I do this? And they're excited about it. But we have to make sure that they're realistic in what is before them, all the things that they have to navigate, and be able to support them in that journey. Because once they graduate from us, we still have a responsibility to help them get established. All of us, as educators, as Native Americans that are working with our students and our communities. So, I think it's important for us to be at the table to share the types of things that happen to us. I try not to be too long-winded.
You're having an event in April, or I'm sorry, in May.
That is an event that I will let Mr. Arvizo talk to you about. And it's in conjunction, well, it's not our event. We are going to be at the table for that one, or at the event itself with Navajo Nation Economic Development. Jason?
Well, good afternoon.
Tell us more about the Navajo event.
Good afternoon, and thank you as well, Dr. Dejoux, for hosting this opportunity for us to share with you some of the challenges and the opportunities available, not just to our students, but trying to address the challenges faced by many entrepreneurs on the Navajo Nation. The event that the Navajo Nation is hosting is the Navajo Nation Economic Summit. That actually is going to take place next week. They've had events in the past, but because of the pandemic, they actually were absent these last 2 years, and they'll look to then again, bring in everyone face to face to Twin Arrows out near Flagstaff, Arizona, to host the event. And there we'll see a number of entrepreneurs. NTU is actually going to host a booth there, and we're essentially going to be able to share the material that we've gained, in our relationship with the Dejoux Institute, and the modules that are available to our students and to those in our incubator. We'll be able to demonstrate that, but it will also be able to share, some of the programs that NTU offers here, like our business programs and other things. But that in a sense is what the event will take place over 3 days. We'll see a number of entrepreneurs. You know, I know the Navajo Nation right now is trying to deal with some funds that were presented to them through the American Rescue Program Act. And you know, I know a number of entities are actually trying to see if they can acquire some of those contributing dollars. So I think a lot of the conversation will be centered around that. You know, how can we then establish a foundation that the Navajo Nation can grow from and move into the future? You know, that is something they seriously need to take advantage of, you know, given this this once in a lifetime opportunity. Thank you.
We have extended to the Navajo Nation the opportunity to use the educational program that we prepare. And we're going to give some scholarships, and we're going to give some stuff so that those that cannot afford it, cannot afford to do it, will be more able to do it. So, you know, we're all in this together. We're all citizens of the world. And we have to help those who have not had the opportunities that others of us have had. So I commend you for doing that. Now, one of the things that basically most Americans do not understand is the complexity of doing business inside a Navajo Nation, in a border town, as they call it. You know, how easy is it for a Navajo entrepreneur to start a business, and what are the big hurdles? Jason or Colleen?
I think that, oh, go ahead.
To answer that question, you know, some of, you know, NTU does have, in partnership with the Navajo Nation, an established incubator sanctioned by the state of New Mexico. In fact, we're the only tribal entity incubator within the state of New Mexico that does receive some state funding. But just listening to the comments, you know, presented by our tenants there, you know, there are some challenges found within the Navajo Nation process. You know, for one, they have to essentially, you know, get the business side of things, you know, situated before they can be listed on a source list that the Navajo Nation, you know, presents as potential businesses for the Navajo Nation. They do mention that although there is the Navajo Nation Business Opportunity Act, which affords them, you know, essentially the ability to be preferred vendors, you know, if there's a possibility to acquire a bid or any of that. But a lot of times that is foregone, and they're not actually considered. There's a lot of discrepancy when it comes to their qualifications and things, and you know, they're kind of considered not qualified in to some degree, and those are some challenges. But I think the one that comes to the forefront is their inability to acquire startup financing or financing in general, you know, to help them really build that opportunity for themselves and to grow. There's also the process, and I think Dr. Bowman quickly mentioned about land status. You know, the land on Navajo is held in trust, so essentially that can't even be used for collateral. So if you're going to acquire a business site lease, there are a lot of hurdles you have to, you know, overcome before you're even given, you know, the ability to develop or even grow that piece of property. And that in itself is cumbersome, and some have stories that take over 2 years or more to get that type of business opportunity. And you know, that shouldn't be occurring. They should be able to set up shop within a month's time frame if they have, you know, the financing and the ability. But things are a challenge on the Navajo, and we're hoping, you know, that through our association again with the Desjeux Institute, we can address some of those challenges. And you know, we're hoping that some of those challenges can be provided a solution to overcome.
Well, Colleen, we're ready and willing to help, and that's my sincerest wish.
Thank you for that.
What else you want to add on that?
I wanted to just briefly mention that You know, it's so easy for some of our Navajo entrepreneurs to step off the reservation, hang a shingle, pay their fee, and boom, they're in business. They have all the tools. I know of several restaurants in Farmington that are owned by Navajo young people. And I'm like, wow, how did you do that? Well, it was so much easier to do that off reservation than it was to be on the reservation. And that's very concerning to me, because that continues to perpetuate this inability for our nation to be strong in economic enterprise within the boundaries of our nation. We should be able to do something to change that. And so I think part of it is going to come through the educational piece and educating those people in power to understand that it is within our control to try to make a change, try to make it different, because it's been this way forever and it doesn't have to be that way. So I think I want to say thank you, Dr. Dejoux, for affording us the knowledge through those modules, and that's going to start the groundwork. And financial capital to get some of these businesses started. If we can find a business that's strong, has a solid business plan, and really has the drive and the compassion and knows without a doubt what they want to do, then we should stand behind them and make that happen for them. So,
Amen.
Mhm.
We're ready to help you.
thank you.
We're ready to help you. Now, I'm going to move for a second to give opportunity to Steve Gray here. Steve is a chairman of the board of Four Corners Economic Development, and he's also an adjunct professor at your Navajo Technology University. And tell us a little bit about how Four Corners Economic Development helps entrepreneurs.
Okay, Shay Steve Gray and Shay not Otnensle, now Kainesh, Chin Podnesh at Sha. I introduce myself in our traditional language, Navajo way, in case we have some Navajo viewers out there, Navajo entrepreneurs. So Four Corners Economic Development is in Farmington, New Mexico. It is a border community that borders the Navajo Nation. Here in our region, we're surrounded by 5 tribes, with the Navajo Nation being the largest. And so we work really closely with the businesses that are off the Navajo Nation, but we don't discriminate. We work also with the businesses that are on the Navajo Nation. As an example, we signed an agreement between our 2 chambers because Navajo Nation has a Dene Chamber of Commerce. And when COVID hit, we had over 600 companies that signed up, small businesses that asked for help. Now, that's not a lot when you think of the Navajo Nation, how big it is, 27,000 square miles, spread across 3 states. We have over 420,000 members, tribal members, and counting. And so our job is to try to make it easy, whether the business is on or off the Navajo Nation, to help them get started. And was mentioned earlier, when you're on federal trust land, that's what tribal lands are. You don't actually have the deed to the land. We were captured people and we were put on reservations. And so the government still controls a lot of things. And all of the bureaucracy that you see in Washington, well, welcome to Indian land, it's there. And so that's why it's difficult. For one example, like was mentioned earlier by Mr. Arvizo, access to capital. That is the biggest thing that the small businesses and all businesses, all entrepreneurs that are doing work on the Navajo Nation or any tribal land come and say, how can you help us with that? So our job is to work with all of those business in and around the region. And we're very proud of what we do. But we really leave it up to the organizations on the tribal lands to try to take the lead and tell us what is it that we can do to help them get started.
This is why I think it's very important that we collectively look at ways to make the system more fair and more able to help people to help themselves. Because that's how we come out of poverty. That's how we make it in this world. And, you know, a comment from one of the panelists, Jill made a comment for Dr. Bowman. You know, Jill uses a lot of people, and, you know, she's interested in how her company can work with some of your students at Navajo Tech and looking at entrepreneurship, because hers is an entrepreneurial enterprise. Is that fair, Jill?
Yeah, well, that, and as well as just you know, mentoring some entrepreneurs. You know, I think especially, you know, obviously our focus is trying to elevate, you know, women and inspire change. So if there are female entrepreneurs on campus, I mean, we'd love to bring them in our system and align them with other people that can help them. And it's part of our mission. So any way we can help, I think part of that is just having exposure to other people that have started businesses and different experiences and different ways to go about things is always very helpful in the entrepreneur journey. So happy to support wherever we can.
Now changing directions, Major Robinson is from Montana. He grew up on the Northern Cheyenne reservation in Montana, and he became an architect. He moved away and he designed theme parks at Disneyland, of all places. Designed theme parks at Universal Studios. Now, I got to ask you, oops, did you design anything dealing with the Minions at Universal?
No, nothing to do with the Minions, but
That's too bad.
I know. It's
That's
too bad.
my favorite bunch. But tell us a little bit about how you basically what recommendations you can make to us to better the Native communities in Montana and other places.
Sure. Anhanisto nahashive, the Domanhan Namatstanith. I just wanted to introduce myself in Cheyenne. I'm Northern Cheyenne, and you know, my name is Screaming Hawk is my Cheyenne name, so I wanted to introduce myself that way. And it's really an honor to be here with all of the panelists. You know, the two businesses that I can talk about that I own right now is Redstone Project Development, which does architectural planning and design, and Sage Notes Trading Post, which I own with my wife, and we have a store in Montana on Main Street in Helena, Montana. So, you know, I heard a lot of great information already about the unique challenges that we have as Native people, both on and off the reservation. And how we're trying to address those. Some of the things that you're seeing that pop up here are some of my experience that I have had. I've been fortunate to not only be a business owner, Native business owner, but also working for our Governor's Office of Indian Affairs for about 3 years. And one of the things that we looked at here and continue to look at is what we heard already from Jason and Colleen is access to capital. Access to capital is really a deterrent. And so a few years ago here in Montana, we sought to try to do something about that, a few of us. And I say a few of us because it was always a collaboration. It's never just one person. How do you build those working relationships? So between the state of Montana, the tribes of Montana, and Indian entrepreneurs, we came up with what's called the Indian Equity Fund, and it's a seed capital. It provides $14,000 to Indian entrepreneurs to help them get started investing in their business. It can be used for a number of different things, and it is a grant. So I'm really happy that the tribes of Montana, and there's 13 different tribes in Montana, they ponied up with money, and the state of Montana ponied up with money and said, no, we want to support these businesses. So this has been going on now for, I think, can't speak for the state of Montana anymore, but probably about 12 or 13 years. And so it's really invested in businesses here in Montana. There's other programs that they have too, like a Native American collateral program, which really helps to, sometimes it's hard to bring that capital to your business. And that's what this helps to do as well. So there's a number of things that we've been able to do as far as partnerships here in Montana.
That is terrific. You know, one of the things that when I came from Cuba and I landed here, there was a nun, a Carmelite nun, in what was then Berry College. It's now Berry University. And she handed me a book to read English poems because I spoke mostly Spanish. And I noticed in the front of the book, there was a saying, and I'm going to change it a little bit because it was written in Old English and 3 centuries ago. But it says, everyone's reach should exceed his or her grasp, or what are the heavens for? And I've always remembered that because we're all on this earth together. We all ought to help each other. We all have to take responsibility for ourselves and others. And if we create great programs and we create great opportunities, the world will be so much better. And so a lot of what I've heard here today is how can we make the indigenous areas of this country better able to grow, better able to create a life for generations to come, and how do we work together as human beings? And this is just but a little example of what the indigenous communities need. And I urge all of us to look around and see where we can be of help and help each other, because that's the key to entrepreneurship. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit. Sage is going to return on a screen that here's some more projects that, and Sage and Oates doesn't have anything to do with Sage, my assistant, but it looks like a pretty interesting place to go. And so we're going to tell you a little bit about the course that we are making available to everybody. So Sage, if we can return on screen.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't share all of the slides for Major Robinson at the appropriate time. I wanted to have everyone get a chance to see, especially I personally, of course, like the Sage and Oates trading post.
So tell us a little bit about what's next, Sage.
Yes, so we are going to open up our question and answer session. You are all welcome to use the Q&A button that's it's probably at the bottom, kind of towards the middle of your screen, Q&A. You can type in your questions there. And while we give you a couple of minutes to write them up, we're going to talk to you about the course that Dr. Deju created.
You can go to the first slide, Sage. This class is available to everyone. It's been used internationally. It's been used it's obviously free to everyone. And basically what it entails is giving people the opportunity to learn from others the fundamentals of how to build an enterprise. Can you show the first slide, Sage?
Yes. There we are.
So the class is framed on 8 modules. And let's go to the next slide a second. Entrepreneurs generally are people who don't fit the mold. They're people like the folks that we have in here today. They want to create. They don't want to be in a corporate environment. They're passionate. And these folks are the ones that change the world. Nobody told Jill that building Tenerol was going to be a piece of cake. It is not. But the satisfaction comes when you achieve things and you get others. So we created a free online program. It uses the Kariki Studio, which was started by Scott McNeely and others, which added interactive elements. So you're not listening to somebody lecture you and put you to sleep for a half hour. You're listening to clips. It's a total package. 5 minutes after you start a module, they may ask you questions or they may insert something else. We start by telling people how to become a principal entrepreneur. If you don't have principles, your enterprise won't work. We've got to do good. And when you do good, you will get rewarded too. So Gary Hamel wrote a book, What Matters Now. That's the basis of this thing. It's a tested effort. We then move into a program teaching people what I call Blue Ocean Strategy. There's a series of books on this. Blue Ocean Strategy is about how to build something different, something that will break the market because everybody will want it. And again, we use some proven areas. This has been used in the wine business. This has been used in a lot of different businesses. Cirque du Soleil is a very famous company. There is no other company like Cirque du Soleil. Module 3, which is the next module, talks about how you build a business plan. And we try to do that by explaining to people, how do you put a short elevator pitch, I call them, 5 minutes or less, that explains what you want to do. And we give people an opportunity to take their request, take your elevator pitch, re-listen it. You don't like it, erase it. It's easy, just press a little button, tape it again. When you have the perfect one, send it to a friend and have them tell you what's good about it, what's bad. Test it out, and who knows? You may find that this is a good way to develop your company. We also insert a clip from Steve Jobs showing you his elevator pitch. And the elevator pitch of a student in Southern Utah, University of Utah. And that particular clip, the student sold his company for 25 million. When you're 20 years old, 25 million is a ton of cash. And he made it. And a business doesn't have to be as complex as Google. A business can be very simple. Then we move to creating product excellence. And I have to tell you, Jeff Bezos has built probably the most successful brand on earth, Amazon. And simplicity is key. So why not learn from him? So he's going to tell us how he did it and how he does it. Module 6 deals with service. And on this planet, there's one hotel chain that's got over 10 million rooms available every day of the week. And it's Marriott. They go by other brands too. So we have Bill Marriott explaining how they built a culture of service excellence. So you want to get and learn about their service excellence, you can click on a little button and you can ask for all their manuals on service excellence. You can get them. The price is cheap. It's less than a penny. It's free. The next module deals with financial plans. This was one of the hardest modules to do because we wanted to keep it simple. We didn't want accountants to write the process. So we simplified it and we teach people how to become financial experts. Finally, module 8, that's where the rubber meets the road. You have to get money for a venture. And so who's best? Who's raised the most money? Who's worth the most money today? Elon Musk. So we have Elon Musk in his own words telling us how he would do it. This outline has got material that's interactive. It'll get you turn on. And I urge you, if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's a great way to get started. And the price is about as cheap as it's going to get. Just turn the button on and get your copy. We have had many successful entrepreneurs. And we're very proud of the diversity of those entrepreneurs. One entrepreneur by the name of Phyllis Newhouse. Phyllis is an African-American woman. She came from poverty. She created a company. Her and I have been friends for a lot of years. We have a little problem, and I'll be honest with everybody here. I told her, I said, you know, Phyllis, you like the Atlanta football team. I like the San Francisco 49ers. Everything else in life, we agree. That we can't sell it to each other. But Phyllis has done a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company, runs a very large corporation in logistics, and runs additional other things. She's a minority. She was scared, yet she has become very, very successful. The other one that I want to single out is a guy by the name of Tom Dyerling, another veteran. He was told he wasn't going to make it. He was shot in Fallujah. He came back, he proved him wrong. He's done several marathons, and he has a company that does a lot of business with Uncle Sam. We've had people of all types. And the key is just succeed through tenacity, through hard work, through failing, because you have to learn to get there, you have to fail first. And, you know, I think is a terrific thing to do this in the world of entrepreneurs. And, you know, Phyllis was very scared of getting a big business. And Phyllis has done two, not one, two SPACs in 90 days. Now that is a record, ladies and gentlemen. And it took a Phyllis to tell us that it could be done. So this is all about breaking records. This is all about making our families, our extended families, our indigenous groups successful. And we all bear some responsibility, but we all bear helping in the hard work that it's going to take to make this happen. And I want to open it up to any questions, Sage, that you can coordinate.
Yes, we have had a question come through, which was directed to Major Robinson. I don't know that all of our attendees are able to see the question that was posed. If you don't mind, Major, I'll just read it out. The question is from Brad Friedman. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. This is a question for the gentleman in Montana who spoke about the Seed Capital Fund. I live in Silicon Valley and Sacramento, and I often hear meetings begin with a land acknowledgement statement to recognize unceded land. how can I and others help bring the idea of contributing to an Indigenous Peoples Seed Capital Fund to the San Francisco Bay Area? And Ms. Med, maybe you'd like to read out what you wrote to him, Major?
Sure. Or yeah, I could, I don't know if I can even find it again, but I can certainly speak to that. As I was mentioning to the gentleman that asked about that, first of all, thank you, because it was a collaboration that started, and I guess to answer your question, how to do it, is that it's really bringing those entities together for that discussion about seed money. I mean, access to capital exists, and the challenges of that exist for both native and non-native businesses. You know, if you're starting up, how do you do it the first time? And it does rely on some money. I've found that to be true myself. So I think the first thing is starting that discussion, because there is an entity in Montana called the State and Tribal Economic Development Corporation. It's actually housed within the state of Montana, but it's comprised of all of the tribal leaders and their representatives that do economic development. So it's actually native run. And there's funding that was set aside by the state legislature for those tribal enterprises. What the tribal members did, which was great, I mean, the tribal representatives, what they did, which was great, was they recognized there's a difference between tribal enterprise and private native business ownership. And so they took some of their money and invested it in the native individual business owners. So they set up grants. So there's a number of grants, one for each of the tribes in Montana that's available, $14,000. It started off with $7,000, but then they also worked on bringing in other investors to bring it up to $14,000. And that's given out every year. And it's a great fund to be able to get businesses started in Indian country. So it's both for native-owned businesses on the reservation or off the reservation.
That's good.
One thing, if I could just mention real quickly, is that Chairman Gerald Gray was supposed to be on the panel as well. And I did talk to him, and unfortunately he had some tribal business that was urgent. So he could not make it, and he regrets not being able to make it, but he knows a lot about the State and Tribal Economic Development Fund. And so we can always follow up with people later on.
Let's do a rapid round here, and I'm going to ask the same question of everybody, so I'm going to ask it once, but we'll start with you, Dr. Bowman. What can we do? What else can we do to help you and help entrepreneurs in your tribe?
Okay, very quickly, I think the best thing that we can do for our Native entrepreneurs is to have a solid place to go to for answers. We don't want people coming in and giving us brilliant ideas and saying, here's the support, and then we never see them again. But being able to say, these are long-standing relationships, and you're going to start helping, true help, you know, and that's what I see for our future, is to be able to have those reliable people we can go to and be the lifeline and just try to help us until we can stand on our own and help the next generation. That's what I envision.
Well, I'm ready to help you. I'm happy to help you. And I'm happy to get mentors to help you. And we're going to set up a line with Navajo Tech so that at certain times, on certain days, you guys can call and we can round up your help. And I do go by New Mexico. I was in New Mexico last week. Unfortunately, I was actually flying all over the state, looking at a site for a new institute that is being launched.
I did want to say, Dr. Dejoux, the other piece of that is I would really appreciate, from the educator's lens, being able for you to work directly with the entrepreneurs who are incubating their ideas at our innovation center. because that's where they're going to find the supports.
Happy to make that happen.
Thank you.
Larry, any comments? You're muted. You're muted.
That I've made, and I've got dozens of ideas. It's interesting because I'm comparing some of the things I heard with what I was doing in Egypt for the United Nations years ago, and getting people who may or may not be in the same situation as who we're talking about, but who had no future, nothing to look forward to. And I created some programs in Cairo that I don't know if they're still going or not, but they became very successful from the standpoint of being people who were now more self-sufficient that entered the program. And I'll send an email out to everybody on this. It was interesting, and I'm just loaded with notes here and ideas.
Jill, same to you. How do we help here? How do we make this happen?
Well, I'm with both of you. I mean, for me, this is about tell us how we can best support you, because you're right. You don't want people to come in and say, hey, we're all excited to help, and then they never show up again. For me, I would love to find some of your female entrepreneurs and let's figure out how we can accelerate their growth, help them with their own business plans. If it makes sense to bring them in our own business, then to help their development, fine. But I think it's really about if an entrepreneur has an idea, then I have a whole network of other women entrepreneurs that would love to mentor younger women that want to become entrepreneurs. So please, we'll talk later. But this is where what I'm getting today is if more people understood this, and even this whole conversation I'm hearing today about on the reservation versus off the reservation, it makes all the sense in the world that you would want to develop it on the reservation. And so how do we get the support from people that have the resources so that we can help lift up other entrepreneurs? It's such a basic, I think Dr. Deju, you said this when we started. I mean, we're all human beings, and this is where, it's about being of service to others and supporting people, because that lifts everyone up. And so, I'm here to serve, and I've received so much benefit from other people over the years that I'd love to figure out how we can best support you.
Paige, would you like to add any comments? You're muted.
I wanted to again just point out that our experts have much better input than I have.
But you see all the stuff that's going on. I'm very open to opinions, so I always ask everyone.
Dr. Bowman and Mr. Arvizo and I had a wonderful conversation recently, during which Dr. Bowman shared some of her opinions, and I won't speak for you, of course, but I think that her overall point was to just consider all positions and to think about environmental concerns. I really appreciated the depth that Dr. Bowman went through in considering and being so thoughtful about perhaps the impact that a business could have, not just its construction, but its service and how people might move around. But if you'd like to add to that, Dr. Bowman, I know I kind of put you on the spot there.
That's fine. And I think the conversation was really looking at, okay, we're going to start a business, but how does that impact the environment that we're in? Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, all of the connections that we have to our place of being. And so being very mindful of that and making sure that one thing that I'm proud of the businesses that I see happening off reservation is these young entrepreneurs are saying, I'm taking my culture with me. you know, they're putting indigenous menu items, they're putting displays on the wall, they're saying to the artisans that come through, hey, let me take your art and hang it on the wall and let me help you get started. You know, they're doing things to help. And so I think that's really power right there. And Jason, I want to give Jason some time because he put a very valuable comment in the chat box. So Jason, can you go over that?
Please.
Well, I appreciate the conversation, you know, everyone's contribution and the expertise being shared here today. I am in agreement that, you know, we need to harness this information, and also probably, you know, I'm not certain who's all on the call as well, our guests that have been invited, you know, they, I'm sure, have a lot of ideas too that they can bring to the table and share. But my comment really, you know, centers on the Navajo Nation and essentially, you know, the businesses that they develop, you know, for some time now. And, you know, they really did not have the full understanding of how to manage and maintain those businesses. They, for the most part, were taking advantage of, you know, selling pennies on the dollar for the coal that was extracted from our mines and uranium that was mined. You know, we need the ability to understand and know, you know, and retain that ownership so that we, or the nation itself, then has that full understanding so that they can support, you know, entrepreneur development, the small business owner. You know, the Navajo Nation administration now has a mantra out there, buy Navajo, but yet they're still not really, you know, fulfilling that mission. And so I think this think tank, or this what we're collaborating and developing, coming up with some means to educate them too, so that they do have the confidence and they do have the wherewithal to support and understand, you know, opportunities can be developed within the nation rather than outsourcing it out to other industries that come to the reservation. You know, we have a lot of natural resources, and I've heard, you know, a recent one developing around hydrogen and how you would, you know, mine that and use that for fuel purposes and other things. So there again, that's a natural resource that's right directly underneath the Navajo Nation, and we need to be able to take ownership and develop it and then sharing it with our Navajo people and the business opportunities there that lie with that opportunity.
Well, Mr. Arvizo, I'm proud that we're all here today, and what we're trying to do is exchange ideas, offer a knowledge pool to people. We are encouraging people to ask for mentorship, and we will be happy to work with, we have an agreement with the Navajo Nation. We're happy to work with Montana. In fact, Secretary of Commerce in Montana and I will be together next week for a few days, and I'm happy to work with him and trying to get some more expertise out there. But if we can teach our young, if we can teach our entrepreneurs how to get the job done, that's the advantage that I had. I didn't know how to start a business, but people at New Mexico Tech helped me. And so we listen, we learn, and we execute. And this stuff is available to you free to anybody that's listening here, anybody else, courtesy of a think tank. And I want to introduce Leo Cunha. Leo is with Kariki. He is located in one of my favorite cities, the power of Zoom. He is in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And Kariki is the child of Sun Microsystems founder Scott McNeely, and it is a free curriculum for anybody. And so, Leo, do you want to say a few words?
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I have a very narrow focus in terms of this discussion. So Kariki, as a not-for-profit education technology company, our goal is to facilitate the distribution of education. We realize what many of the pitfalls, many of the inequities are. And we believe that every learner should have the opportunity to have the same level of quality, the same level of quantity, and the same availability of really great education as anybody else within the globe. And we've set out to build this technology, and we are proud that the first experiment is with Dr. Deju's content, and we welcome any other purveyor of great educational material to work with us on our nonprofit mission to make sure that the learners have access, they have equity, and that their experience, their learning experience, is as good as they would have in any Ivy League school, no matter where they are.
And I urge everyone here, we all can connect. I'm going to turn this over to Sage for a second for closing comments. But we're proud of all the participants here. We're proud of the history that you represent. But we're also proud that you're a key to a successful future. And anything that we can do, and I truly mean this, anything that we can do to help entrepreneurs in the Native and Indigenous communities succeed, we will try to make it happen. Somebody help me. I want to do the same thing.
And
Say,
I vouch for Dr. Deju. He is very sincere in that message and follows that with action. I wanted to acknowledge that Jill Osher did have to jump off of our webinar just now. She had another engagement. We did get a little bit of a follow-up question. One, if I can take that time, was that actually the director of the Department of Chamber of Commerce from Montana, who is Dr. Deju's friend, just commented to add on to what Major Robinson had said, that the program Mr. Robinson had spoken about is housed within the Montana Department of Commerce. And Chairman Gerald Gray, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us today, is the chair of that State Tribal Economic Development Commission, which is what Major had said as well. And then we did have a question from Lathan Pablo, who asked, regarding what Dr. Deju mentioned, is it a great idea for those who are starting out in developing their business to have a business plan already going, or will they be given help with that process? And if I can jump in, I know that there is the module within the course if you'd like to take it. But I think in general, before funding, isn't it correct to our experts that really you need to have the business plan written out before you can seek funding?
okay, but I will end it with a simple story. A lot of things, all it takes is an elevator pitch. And then you get somebody enamored with this. Now, I will give you one that was a student that had this idea, which is a coffee machine. And I say coffee or soda machine for principally lawyers and big offices. This thing has controls, and you can control how many vitamins you put in, what vitamins you put in, the temperature. It's a cool gadget. Well, he built it, he designed, and somebody bought it. How long? 2 months. This is a kid that now had his education paid by his invention. What's cooler than that? So entrepreneurship is for everyone, takes different shapes, different forms, but don't ever say no. You may have the next Coca-Cola invention or the next Disneyland. It's all here for the asking. So I want to thank everybody who listened to this, and I look forward to a lot of you using the program. And thanks to all the participants here who have contributed their time and effort. And yes, Pauline, yes, Dr. Bowman, we will be seeing you soon in the Navajo lands. And the same thing with you, Mitchell, in Montana.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, everyone.